Okay, Clara.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to our 10th webinar on GON. And I would like to thank you for joining this webinar. Today, we will hear about Uganda's exciting story of bringing the country closer than ever to banish this parasitic disease that's in the history, and that using the combination strategy that is using vector as well as MDA. Before anything else, I would like to bring you all to the housekeeping information to make sure that our meeting is run properly. First of all, I would like to tell you all that we have 5 panelists today with some live presentation and some will be recorded. We will only switch to pre-recorded presentation in case of internet issues. We first listen to the panelists who I will introduce shortly. After the presentation, I will open up the floor for discussion. Participants can type their questions into the chat, and I'll allocate them to the panelists. Also, all panelists as well as participants can respond in the chat and for giving the questions as well as responding to the queries. If participants wish to talk, please raise your hand and I can grant you access to talk. As usual, we have simultaneous translation to make this to make sure that everyone who is in the session understands what is going on. So we'll have 2 translation into French as well as Portuguese. You have to click on the globe icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen and you can switch to your preferred language. After the webinar, the Secretariat will send you the recording and slides. Should you wish to see our previous webinar, as I mentioned earlier, that this is our 10th webinar. If you wish to see the previous one, please check the GON YouTube channel where the recordings get uploaded instantly after the session. So I started the housekeeping without introducing myself. Let me introduce myself before I introduce the panelists to you. My name is Clara Jones. I'm the chair of the GON network, and in my capacity, I'm the Onkosekasisi focal person from the Ministry of Health, Tanzania. So let me now introduce the following panelists. But before I introduce them, I would like to welcome my fellow from the Secretariat, my fellow colleague Nadia, to project the agenda. Welcome, Nadia. So I think everyone can see the agenda which has been projected. And as mentioned earlier, we have 5 panelists. So we will have Dr. Martin Mayanja, the National Coordinator for Onkosekasisi, Ministry of Health, who will give a talk on the country progress toward NTD 2030 roadmap targets for Onkosekasisi in Uganda. And then as we implement these efforts toward elimination of onchocerciasis, we appreciate the efforts done by our partners. Therefore, we also have we'll have time to hear from our partners. The partners who will be presenting today is Dr. Edrida Moheki, the country director, Uganda, from the Kata Center. And also we'll have Dr. Wani, the country director, Uganda Site Savers. And also, as we are in the road, we are implementing these efforts, we are also looking at what are the cross-border issues. So today, again, we'll have time to hear from the neighboring countries where we'll have Dr. Tony Uketi, the medical director, Center, Democratic Republic of Congo, and also Dr. McCoy, from South Sudan. And after that, we'll have the discussion, and where all the participants together with the panelists will be allowed to ask questions. And we'll be closing our session by having a wrap up and next step from Dr. Martin Mayanja from Uganda. After this short introduction of all the participants, I would now like to welcome Dr. Martin Mayanja, the National Coordinator for Onkosekasisi, Ministry of Health, Uganda, to give us a talk on the country progress toward NTD 2030 roadmap targets for Onkosekasisi in Uganda. And it was agreed previously that our IT will play the recorded presentation. So welcome Nadia and the colleagues for the presentation from Dr. Martin.
To eliminate river blindness as a disease that causes severe skin itching, skin disfigurement, total blindness, and in some instances, it has been associated with the nodding syndrome in Uganda. The disease, due to Onchocerca volvulus, a parasite transmitted by Smurium flies, was first reported in Uganda in the Victoria Nile focus in the 1940s. Control efforts were initiated in the 1950s through the application of DDT. Success was registered, elimination was achieved in the focus, and these control efforts went on very well up to the 1970s when they were halted due to the political strife in the country. In 1989, the Uganda Foundation for the Blind and Sight Savers initiated mass treatment in one of the foci in Budongo focus. In 1992, a national control program was formulated to revive control activities within the country. Between 1992 to 1996, the national control program received support from different partners, including Carter Center, Sight Savers, and APOC, to carry out a nationwide rapid epidemiological mapping for the disease. Mass treatment was scaled up into the West Nile focus with support from the German technical agency. An elimination policy was launched in 2007. Elimination guidelines were laid down. Uganda moved from annual to biannual treatment using the CBTI strategy. Uganda was the only country at that time which had a pool of trained officers, the vector control officers. Therefore, vector control using ABET where feasible was also adopted in some foci. An independent advisory committee, the Uganda Onchocerca Elimination Expert Advisory Committee, was formed. This was made of personnel from Ministry of Health and also experts from the international community. On its advice, the UOEESC advised Uganda to carry out refined mapping. This was done to capture all the hypoendemic areas and all the potential breeding sites and rivers were mapped out for Simurium nivi and some Simurium damnosum. All the 16 transmission foci were mapped out in the 37 districts. Populations at risk of infection were also established. The UOEESC is an independent technical committee made of local and international experts. This was made to formulate guidelines to guide Uganda as a country towards eliminating the disease. At that time, it formulated and developed guidelines for determining elimination where it has been achieved in the different foci. The guidelines that were developed were reviewed and adopted by Ministry of Health in 2011. This expert committee meets once every year in Uganda within Kampala to review the progress and develop recommendations that are supposed to be followed by the Ministry of Health in the different foci. It also advises the ministry on ways to address challenges facing progress towards elimination of river blindness. With support from partners, including Carter Center, a molecular laboratory for screening flies and parasite DNA in humans was established at Vector Control Division of Ministry of Health in 2006. Staff were trained in the laboratory techniques, including serological and molecular techniques in the Guatemala laboratories. More local capacity building was done back home, and the laboratories were equipped with different equipment and also reagents to support the elimination process. With support from partners, including Carter Center, we continue to implement different control options, including vector control, using a bait, carrying out river dosing to suppress the Simurium larvae populations. Also in 2012, His Excellency the President of Uganda launched aerial spraying on River Asra and River Agago to suppress the Simurium population density, to curb down the presence and the burden of the disease in the northern part of Uganda. In addition to river dosing, in 2018, Uganda began implementing Slash and Clear, a community self-help project that is implemented by communities themselves. It aims at denying flies from breeding in the trailing vegetation. It is usually implemented during the dry season when the water levels are low, and usually it is implemented by the communities. It is voluntary, often supervised by the sub-county leaders, parish supervisors, and other local leaders. Using the CDTI strategy, we have gone through the 3 phases of implementation. That is the mass treatment, the post-transmission surveillance, and the post-elimination surveillance for most of the foci. We have virtually eliminated the disease in a number of foci, as we shall see in the different figures in the next slides. Significant progress has been registered over the years since 2007. From one focus in the 1950s, that was Victoria Nile focus, we have eliminated transmission in 14 foci. Interruption is suspected in 2 foci, and we have also interrupted transmission in 1 focus. Looking at the map on your right, we have no more active transmission as of 2022. We only need to strengthen collaborations with our neighboring countries, that is the South Sudan and the DRC, where we get refugees due to the insecurity in their countries. Carter Center continues to support activities in the refugee settlements in the northern parts of Uganda. With support from partners, Carter Center, we received support and also obtained medicine to carry out MDA in the refugee settlements in Lamo and Obongi. The refugee settlements included Palabek and Parolinya. In the first round of MDA, we reached out to 100,000 people. In the second round of MDA, we reached over to 88,000 people in these 2 refugee settlements. These were reasonable high treatment coverages that we registered. The National Onchocerciasis Elimination Program is housed at Vector Control Division and is headed by the National Coordinator, who is also the Assistant Commissioner in charge of vector-borne diseases. He is also the chair of the NTD Secretariat that brings together program managers of disease-specific programs and also coordinates the NTD implementing partners. VCD or Vector Control Division is under the Environmental Health Department. At the district level, we have the district health officer who is in charge of health services. Along with his team, there we have the district onco coordinator and the district vector control officer who help us in the implementation of the program within the districts. At the National Center, our role is basically to develop IEC materials, offer training, which is done in a cascade manner, offer support supervision, develop data collection tools, and guide to see that we get high treatment coverages and also address any other challenges that may arise. We do implementation, as you can see, at national level. We move on to the district. From district, we move on to the county. From county, we move on to the sub-county. At sub-county level, we have the sub-county focal persons who are always based at Health Center 3. Then at another level below the sub-county is the parish, where we have our parish supervisors who train the community supervisors. The community supervisors train the community drug distributors. The community drug distributors are voluntary persons who implement mass treatment free of charge. The CDDs are selected by the communities under their local leadership. In some of the communities in northern Uganda, there are local personnel, local traditional personnel called the Rotqueries, who also help in the selection of the CDDs. Onchocerciasis transmission occurs across borders. Communities are just separated by imaginary borders. There is free cross movement across these borders. Whereas we have registered significant progress within Uganda, this should be maintained by ensuring that such communities are treated. Control interventions should be implemented across the border. So we have continued to engage provincial leaders, local leaders in the neighboring countries to ensure that joint control interventions are implemented as shown in the figure. You can see personnel from Uganda moved into the DRC to engage the local leaders to ensure that we can implement some of these activities together and also help them train personnel in how to carry out some of these activities, such as vector control, such as screening communities for infection. Joint cross-border collaborative activities that we have tried to implement with our neighbors included OV16 evaluations in shared transmission zones, vector monitoring, or PCR monitoring for infection. We have also participated in training of people to implement slash and clear and also larviciding. We have had collaborative meetings to engage different stakeholders within Uganda, DRC, and also Southern Sudan, and also have attempted to synchronize mass drug administration. Despite the many achievements we have registered over the years, we still face challenges as a program. These include limited domestic funding to program activities. There is no support for post-elimination surveillance. The support that we used to get from WHO is no longer visible since the closure of APOC. There is general fatigue by the CDDs to carry out MDA, and there is a high attrition rate of the CDDs. We continue to register a high number of refugees coming from DRC and Southern Sudan. There is no support for joint cross-border activities, and then the insecurity in the neighboring countries hamper planned collaborative interventions. So as a program, generally we need more support, first of all for the day-to-day running of the program. We need to develop post-elimination surveillance clear guidelines. We need to be assisted to strengthen cross-border collaborations, and also GON should solicit for support to the programs of the DRC and Southern Sudan so that they can undertake biannual mass drug administration. Uganda launched its new NTD master plan for 2023-2027 this year in 2023 in the month of February. The major focus is to scale up NTD control efforts to achieve prevention, control, and elimination of the many NTDs as in line with the WHO roadmap for elimination of NTDs in Africa by the year 2030. Onchocerciasis is one of the NTDs which was captured within the NTD master plan. We have indicated our work plan for the different years and what we want to implement. The document is already out, and I think it can also be accessed online. We want to thank the different partners that have supported Uganda over the years in the elimination process. Without their support, we wouldn't have been where we are. We pray that we shall continue working together and they will continue supporting the program, the ministry, in order to achieve total elimination across all the foci. And also we pray that the support is increased to ensure that the collaboration across our neighboring countries that are plagued by the insecurity continues to come and should be on time, so that our achievements are not compromised with the influx of refugees and also the flies that do come from the neighboring countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin, for a very nice presentation. And indeed, we as other endemic countries are learning a lot from your country. And as you have presented, we've seen that in Uganda for now, there is no active transmission in the country. However, you have also highlighted some few challenges like limited funding, no plan for post-elimination surveillance, and some humanitarian crisis in the neighboring country. So without further ado, I would like also now to welcome our partners who have been supporting Uganda in the implementation of, in the intervention for onchocerciasis elimination. Welcome, Dr. Edrida Mubeki, the country director for the Carter Center in Uganda, who's going to give us a talk on their perspective, while she will be talking about what is the contribution of the partners in the onchocerciasis elimination program in Uganda, as well as the drivers that have led the progress and current situation. Welcome, Dr. Edrida, for the presentation. Hello, Nadia. Hello.
Yes, just a second. Hello, can the recording does not work.
Okay, I can try.
Yeah, did you
let me
click
try
on
IT, Laurent?
Yes, which one is?
Number 3, Dr. Edrida.
Yes, exactly.
You want me to speak?
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Edrida Muhechi presenting the Carter Center perspective. Giving a history of partner support to the onco control in Uganda, Ministry of Health started controlling onco in 1950s through river dosing using DDT and treating infected persons with hetrazan. In early 1990s, Ministry of Health, together with partners that included Uganda Foundation for the Blind, Sight Savers, Abyss Italy, River Blindness Foundation, and the Carter Center, commenced annual mass treatment using ivermectin that was donated by Merck and Co. In 2007, RTI funded by USAID came on board to support the ONCO program through various projects, and these included the NTD program, Envision, and the current Act. What is the Kata Center contribution to the onco elimination program in Uganda? Kata Center started supporting Ministry of Health in 1991. In 2007, Uganda took an early decision on elimination of onco and launched twice-yearly treatments combined with vector control and elimination where feasible. Kata Center supported epidemiological and entomological surveys in all endemic areas, which included the hypo, meso, and hyper endemic areas, and MDA was scaled up to all those places. The Kata Center also spearheaded cross-border collaborative surveys and interventions in Democratic Republic of Congo and Republic of South. This is Kata Center support towards capacity building. Kata Center assisted Ministry of Health to institute the Ugandan Onchocerciasis Elimination Expert Advisory Committee, and it also supports its annual meetings. Kata Center assisted Ministry of Health to establish a molecular laboratory for serological and entomological monitoring of the program. It also supported training of laboratory personnel and the vector control teams at the national and the district levels, and also supported training of MDA teams that include community drug distributors and supervisors within the district. Kata Center also supported training of field vector control teams for Democratic Republic of Congo and Republic of South Sudan. Currently, over 271,000 CDDs have been trained. These include those from areas where MDA has been stopped, and some of them in areas where MDA is ongoing are parish supervisors or sub-county supervisors. Some were selected as VHTs, a structure that is used by Ministry of Health in community health programs. Kata Center has plans to conduct a study in areas where elimination was attained and MDA was stopped to assess what the former CDDs are doing and what they have contributed to the health system. Kata Center has supported the ONCO program with transport means, including vehicles and motorcycles. We have also supported construction and equipping of an office block at the Division of Vector-Borne and this map was already shown in the Ministry of Health presentation, and you note that there is no focus where transmission is ongoing. What are the drivers or the data that have led to the progress and current situation? There has been stable donor financial support. There has been political will at the national and district levels. There is availability of technical personnel at the national and the district levels. There has always been a constant supply of the logistics like IVM, a bed used for vector elimination, and the laboratory reagents provided by the University of South Florida. Supplementing MDA with vector control and elimination also assisted in achieving these elimination targets. And we also have committed members of the Uganda Onchocerciasis Elimination Expert Advisory Committee. The endemic communities are cooperative in the onco elimination operations, and we have been attaining high treatment coverages with a UTG of 90% and above. The epidemiological and entomological data obtained has always made the committee make informed decisions. Here I pick out one key challenge: cross-border transmission, which is mainly attributed to security in DRC and Republic of South Sudan, and this hampers the program planned activities. We are planning to continue engaging the political and technical personnel to assess the security situations, and when peace prevails, we shall resume the planned activities. We also encourage the two countries to embrace the twice-yearly treatments. And we also have plans to resume vector elimination interventions in areas where refugees from Republic of South Sudan are settled in Madi mid-focus. In conclusion, partner support for the Ministry of Health has enabled Uganda to shrink the national onchocerciasis map. And collaboration between partners, ministries of health in bordering countries is key in realization of the onco targets in the NTD roadmap of 2030. Carter Center appreciates Ministry of Health Uganda, WHO, site savers, Lions Clubs of Uganda, endemic communities, and local governments. Finally, Carter Center would like to thank USAID, Act to End NTDs East, RTI International, the Elmer Foundation, MAC, Mexican Donation Program, the University of South Florida, and our many other generous donors. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edrida, for very well informative presentation. And now I would like to welcome Dr. Anthony Wani, the Country Director, Uganda Site Savers. And Dr. Anton will give us a talk on the same questions or will walk us through the same areas as Dr. Edrida, where he will be talking about what are the contributions in their perspective from site savers. So Dr. Anton will give us a live presentation. Welcome, Dr. Anton, for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm going to present on site savers' contribution to the elimination of onco in Uganda. Next slide, please. The site savers, as has been pointed out by other colleagues, worked in partnership, and therefore the contribution that is will be mentioned here is a collaborative effort. Next, please. Site savers assistance to river blindness elimination in Uganda started in 1996. However, the biggest funding came in 2016 up to 2019. The funding was from DFID. The grant was $5 million, and this was sterling pounds, and this was intended for Uganda and 3 other countries in West Africa. The goal of the project was to reduce prevalence of river blindness and lymphatic filariasis, and also improving lives of poor people. Next, please. As has been pointed out, one of the biggest achievements was the implementation of biannual treatments. You can see here in this graph, this was the achievement for a second round treatment of onco by site savers. Mass drug administration was conducted. Next, please. How did we achieve all this? Some of the key issues we did was that partnership. Partnership was key. Site savers worked with the government at various levels, with the Ministry of Health at the national level, and this assisted us in policy development and development of IC materials. We also worked at the local level, where we worked with district health teams, health facilities, and affected communities. This implementation required community participation, and this was key. We also worked with international NGOs, among them are the Carter Center, RTI, Avis Italy, and the River Blindness Foundation. Donors were also key in these achievements. We mentioned earlier that DFID gave a grant, and also Merck and company gave the drugs that were used during the mass drug administrations. Next, please. What was the progress that we achieved? We did expand mass drug administrations to populations in need. Site savers worked in Western Uganda, Bunyoro sub-region. We focused at Hoima, Chibale, Bulisa, and Masindi districts. We achieved programmatic and geographical coverage thresholds for onco as required by WHO. We also conducted vector control, and this was done both in Western Uganda and in Northern Uganda. In Western Uganda, we interrupted transmission in Chibale focus, or is called Mpamba Nkusi. And then in Northern Uganda, we also carried out larviciding and also flies of vector catching. We also noted that engagement of communities to increase awareness through training and through health promotion was key, because such a project requires community support. If the community can own the project, it is then possible to implement activities. Next, please. What were the drivers to this progress? As I mentioned, partnership is key, both internal and external. The internal partnership was with the Ministry of Health, and also at a local level with the districts and community support structures. We also worked with international NGOs like the Carter Center, RTI, and others. Integration of this project into the government systems helped a lot in these achievements. When we integrate activities, this leads to ownership of the project by the government and the structures that are within the district level. And these structures at the district level are the ones implementing. CDD's selection was also key. The CDDs were selected by their communities, and there are people who are resident in the area. And therefore, if you have them resident in the area, then you guarantee that the attrition rate would be low. And therefore, these are people who are also willing to work voluntarily. Political will was key. The Uganda government was committed to the program. It gave the political assistance to us, who are able to then work with the district after they get the letters from the Ministry of Health. Capacity building was also key. We train partner staff, Ministry of Health staff. We train health workers, over 500 were trained. We also train community drug distributors, over 3,300. Next, please. What were the lessons learned in this process of implementation? We noted that integration and aligning activities to government structures were important, because as an agency, we cannot be everywhere. We cannot implement in all the parishes or villages. We had to rely on the structures that are existing in the districts. We also noted that sensitization and increased awareness on onco led to increased uptake of MDA services. If the communities are aware of the risks of this disease, then the uptake of drugs became easy and increased. Health promotion was also carried out. Messages were on posters, radio talk shows, and also dramas. And these messages led to the increase in community participation. And as we said earlier, community participation is key, because if the community is in charge of its own health activities, then it becomes easier for partners to be able to implement activities. Because of the uptake of MDS, quality of life of beneficiaries was improved. As we noted history that was given by the Minister of Health, when we reached in 2019, the cases that presented with skin manifestation were reduced. We also looked at team spirit. As we mentioned earlier, we worked with the Carter Center, we worked with the government, we also worked with RTI. There was no competition. All of us worked together to create synergy. Next, please. What were the challenges encountered? We noted that the areas that we work in are neighboring countries like DRC and South Sudan. We then noted that migration, it could be For commercial purposes, it could be due to insecurity, refugees. They cross from one part to the other. And if during mass drug administration, the community is across the border, then they would miss the treatments that they should have gotten. However, the implementation of biannual also managed to reduce these effects, because if the community was away in one treatment round, then they would be able to get treatment in the second one. Community fatigue, as is mentioned earlier by colleagues who presented, this implementation goes on for over 10 years. Year in, year out, you have to give out drugs. The community and the CDDs developed fatigue because they were wondering, when is this going to stop? And this was a challenge. Inclusion of women into community drug distributors was a challenge. In the country, women have social obligations and they attend to family needs, and fewer of them were willing to join. Low uptake of treatment by urban population. As in other countries and in Uganda, urban populations are not easy to handle because they perceive that there is low risk, and therefore it is hard to persuade them to take the drug. It takes a lot of advocacy before you can persuade some to take the drug. Sustainability, as has been mentioned by Dr. Martin, was a challenge. There's reliance on partners and donors. The contribution from the government was low, although recently we did advocacy. The government has now developed a sustainability plan, and we are hoping that with time, we'll be able to raise domestic contribution for NTDs. Next, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anton, for the very good presentation, and also for taking us through the partners' contribution as well as the efforts you are doing in order to ensure that onchocerciasis is eliminated in Uganda. And one big point which you have noted from the experience from what you have shared is that you have had a lot of community engagement as well as integration with the government structure. That we are, as other countries which are endemic, are also taking that into consideration and see how we add that to our efforts. So now that we have heard from the partners, now I would like to welcome Dr. Tony Uketi to talk about the cross-border issues. And as we are moving on, as we have seen from all the presentation from the National Coordinator of Onchocerciasis, Dr. Martin Mayanja, and the talk done by Dr. Edwida Muheki, as well as Dr. Anton, they are all talking about cross-border issues. Now it's time to welcome Dr. Tony Uteki, the Medical Director, to take us through the cross-border issues. Dr. Tony Uketi is from Democratic Republic of Congo, and he's going to do a live presentation. Please, the floor is yours, Dr. Tony.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. And it is really a privilege for me to present this topic on DRC cross-border issues with Uganda on behalf of Dr. Naomi Awacha and Dr. Jean-Paul Tambwe, respectively NTD Program Manager for DRC with his her Deputy Program Manager, both from the Ministry of Health. And it is really an honor. Why? Because both of them are on duty travel currently and unable to present. So thank you very much for this honor. What do we know about the cross-border issues between Uganda and DRC? As we just heard, the collaboration between Uganda and DRC is one of the oldest collaboration on onco elimination activities. this has started since 2007, when the government of Uganda adopted the elimination policy coming from the control program. Number two, that initiative was heavily backed by EPOC at the beginning, and later on it has been picked up by the partners, and particularly the Kata Center, and from time to time, CBM provided some support in order to organize some cross-border activities. Apart from the language barrier, collaboration between both countries has been seriously hindered by the chronic war situation in the DRC during the past 2 decades and even more. As we have already seen and followed through the previous speakers, there are 3 areas of interest regarding cross-border activities between Uganda and DRC. The first one is up north, facing the areas facing the Nyagak-Bondo focus in the north, as you can see on this map. The second area is in the middle, areas in DRC facing Lubiria focus. And thirdly, in the south, the area facing the Bwindi focus. What have been achieved so far during the past 10 years or so? First of all, in the north, through the areas facing the Nyagak-Bondo focus, joint teams from both countries conducted several epidemiological, serological, and also entomological activities in the north. As you can see, the team there. And also, apart from the evaluations, the joint team managed to conduct vector control using the ground larviciding. The second activities took place in the southern cross-border area, facing the Bwindi focus, and once again, the joint team conducted mainly some evaluation regarding entomology, regarding serology, and sometimes epidemiological studies. And all these activities during the past 10 years showed that Uganda can be able in 2 areas to eliminate the disease. Where did we have the challenge? This is with the focus facing Lubiria. And this area, since the past 10 years, has been very challenging. Every time meetings were organized, but it was almost impossible to organize joint team activities in a field. And this is mainly targeting 2 health districts, the Mutwanga Health District in DRC, as well as the Kamango Health District, because of the rebel groups operating in that area. Because of this, it will be very difficult for Uganda to declare elimination of phococerciasis in this area facing Lubiria focus. And as I said before, there is a need to conduct joint activities, especially in 2 health zones, the Mutwanga one, as well as the Kamango one. In conclusion, there is a need to have innovative strategies and new tools in order to address this remaining cross-border area between Uganda and DRC surrounding the Rwenzori Mountain. I would like to thank the Ministry of Health of Uganda for being proactive in inviting the neighbors in DRC for joint activities, for meetings. I would like as well to thank the partners who have made this possible, especially the Carter Center, who invested a lot of money in order to conduct both field activities as well as meetings. And we cannot forget CBM from time to time has put some money in order to make this cross-border possible. And with that, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tony, for a very well-detailed presentation. I think you are still learning a lot. And so, dear participants, before we continue with Mr. McCoy, I would like again to remind you, if you have any question, please write in the chat box or raise your hand and you'll be granted the opportunity to speak. We are still on time, and I believe we'll have enough time to do the discussion. So please raise your hands if you have any burning issue or if you want to add more to what has been presented. And also, I would like also to remind you also to write the questions in the chat box. So now I would like to welcome Mr. McCoy's presentation, which is going to be played, the pre-recorded one. Welcome, Nadia, for the presentation from Mr. McCoy.
My name is McCoy Samuel Yibi. I work for the South Sudan Ministry of Health as a director for the Guinea Education Program and formerly worked as the director for PC entities. It is my pleasure and also honored to participate in this important webinar. To reflect on how South Sudan and Uganda are working together on onchocerciasis elimination in the cross-border regions, we need to look into the onchocerciasis endemicity map that was built in the early 2000s from the REMO mapping. In this map, we want to refer to the areas of endemicity for onchocerciasis between South Sudan and Uganda as a special intervention zones. And on the South Sudan side, we focus on Magwi and Kajukeji counties. As Uganda gear closer to achieve onchocerciasis elimination, and with the South Sudan stepping up efforts to shift from onchocerciasis control to elimination, the need for cross-border collaboration became critical for both programs. As a result, Uganda sponsored the first cross-border meeting on May 16, 2018 in Gulu, and a joint communique on elimination of cross-border onchocerciasis transmission was developed. Following the cross-border meeting in Gulu, Uganda in May 2018, the South Sudan onchocerciasis program conducted a high-level meeting in Juba, bringing together heads of critical institutions from both the security and civilian sectors of government and other stakeholders that have important mandates to facilitate the cross-border collaboration for elimination of onchocerciasis transmission in border areas. As a result, the high-level advocacy meeting adopted the joint communique of the cross-border meeting in Gulu, approved the joint action plan for onchocerciasis elimination in border areas, and approved the facilitation of movement technical team and supplies to enhance cross-border activities. The high-level advocacy meeting in Juba was followed by another joint high-level advocacy meeting in Nimule, South Sudan, headed by the then South Sudan National Minister of Health, Honorable Dr. Guy Kok, and senior representative from the Uganda Ministry of Health. The meeting demonstrated the commitments of both governments to the joint communique of the cross-border meeting, joint action plan for onchocerciasis elimination in border areas, and facilitation of movement of technical teams and supplies in border areas. the programs level, the South Sudan team, with support from the Ugandan team, embarked on implementation of serological tests for COVID-16 and reverse prospection in both Magui and Kajukeji counties. The outcome of the test and the river prospection shows low breeding sites of Simonium nevi and Simonium damnosum on Atepi river systems on the Magui side, and OV16 shows no current transmission. From the Kajukeji side, bordering Moyo district in Uganda, results from adults shows there was high transmission all over Greater Kajukeji. Samples from children should be analyzed to understand whether there is recent exposure. From the entomological survey, vector breeding is high on most river systems. In regards to the second topic of the presentation on what are the cross-border challenges between South Sudan and Uganda and how can this best be addressed, I will first want to highlight on some of the key challenges. 1. Resources and security challenges to implement twice-yearly treatment, with the ivermectin attaining at least 80% therapeutic coverage in Kajukeji and Magui counties. 2. Resources and security challenges to implement appropriate vector control and monitoring in Kajukeji and Magui counties. Accordingly, I would want to suggest the following recommendations and solutions. 1. Vaccination donation program to approve the drugs for twice-a-year treatment in special intervention zones. 2. Donors are partners to provide financial support for MDA's vector control and monitoring activities. County commissioners to ensure access and security to all communities. Refugees in Uganda treated by the Uganda ONCO program. 5. Complete the reverse prospection to determine breeding sites and implement appropriate vector control and monitoring activities. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCoy, for the nice presentation. And now I would like to open the floor for discussion. I have some few questions from the presenters from Uganda. First of all, thank you again. Thank you again, Mr. McCoy, where as we've seen, in all of Uganda, we don't have new infection. That means transmission has been suppressed. But now, looking at what has been just presented, it's like there's still active transmission in the side, on the neighboring side from South Sudan, which neighbor, I'd like to ask the Uganda team, are you still doing MDA in this area where on the other side of Sudan, there are still high infection rates there? That's one. And also, I would like to welcome you all to tell us, all from Uganda, it could be the partners or from the coordinators from the Ministry of Health. Where is Uganda, or how do we see Uganda itself? How do you see yourself in reaching the NTD 2030 roadmap goals? So I pose those questions to you. First of all, what is the status in the neighboring country? And the second one is, what do you see? How do you rate yourself in reaching the NTD 2030 roadmap goals? Hello? Hello?
Hello, Clara.
Yes, I would like to welcome the presenters from Uganda. I hope they can hear me.
Yes, it's loud and clear.
Okay, Dr. Martin, can you say anything? Where do you see yourself in reaching the NTD 2030 roadmap, and what is happening on your side with regard to what is happening in South Sudan?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is Martin Mayanja on behalf of the Onco Elimination Program, but in the background is also David Ogutu, the program manager. I think, let me give him opportunity to respond to this, since he has been the program much more than me. You're welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Clara and Martin, for all the nice presentation. We see Uganda achieving onchocerciasis elimination before end of the 2030 WHO roadmap. So our target to have completed post-treatment surveillance is 2027. So when we look at what is happening in South Sudan and DRC, to us, so far so good. In the bordering areas where we have conducted evaluations, it shows that there is no ongoing transmission, which means South Sudan and DRC, they are also doing well in some areas where we're sharing the transmission. In the Lubiriha area, which Tony was presenting, we have done assessments in Uganda, and there is minimal risk of transmission. And the same could be the side of DRC, only that we have not gone there. If a window opens, a window of security to conduct assessments in the Lubiriha area, I'm very optimistic that Lubiriha focus could stop interventions by 2025. So, very optimistic that Uganda is going to achieve elimination before the end of the WHO roadmap 2030. So the WHO assistance in the cross-border collaboration is very key. It is something which has not been very visible. As you have had South Sudan, DRC presenting, we have used innovative local approaches to implement what we have done. So WHO coming on strongly to coordinate the cross-border collaborative activities would be very key. But we have seen serious challenges here because for the last 3 years we have been attempting. Our minister has written letters to WHO regional office requesting communications to country representatives, South Sudan and DRC, but no responses. The APOC support ended with its closure. So the WHO support which we were seeing to the program stopped. So we need really WHO to come up strongly on the cross-border collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the well narration on where we see. So I think as you rate yourself, will be probably one among the first countries to eliminate onchocerciasis in the country. Well done. Now there is a question from Kanza Eric. The participant is asking if there are any clinical studies done in Uganda on the development of drugs like myclophenolate that could accelerate the elimination of onchocerciasis. Over to you, Uganda team, if you have the response to this question, which is in the chat.
Thank you, Clara. We have not conducted this clinical trials or new medicine discovery in Uganda, but we have seen innovations in DRC with the moxidectin, moxidectin, which has been evaluated in the DRC. So in case anything happens with the ivermectin, maybe resistance, we have alternative from just the neighborhood. So much as we have not done it in Uganda, other countries have done it, for example, in DRC. So this is international collaboration, and it may not even be necessary to do it in Uganda for now, since we have already an alternative medicine approved.
Thank you very much for the response. And do we have anyone with any contribution from the partners or from the panel? Hello? Looks like the presentation was really clear, because if you don't have so many questions, that means the participants fully understood. Okay, now I can see the hand from Anthony One. Please,
Thank you again. This question is to Tony. I wanted to know if DRC is implementing biannual treatments in the areas that he talked about.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anthony, for your question. DRC has adopted the semi-annual scheme treatments, but I think, to my knowledge, up to today, they have not really put it in place in these specific areas. So far, the country is still using annual treatment, and I think the plan is there. And I think we do have also a number of areas which were considered high pandemic before, where no CDTI has been put in place, and the country is remapping actually the disease again in order to conduct actually the elimination plan. That's what I know so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I see another hand from David Ogutu. Dr. Ogutu, the floor is yours, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Clara. Actually, it's not David Ogutu. We are using the same computer, so this is a reader. I just want to thank everyone for their contributions, the questions, and especially WHO for organizing these webinars. Expounding on what David has just mentioned, David is the program manager for ONCO in Uganda. And you have noted that we are only grappling with one focus, actually two foci that border with DRC and South Sudan, but mainly the one that borders with DRC. Because of the insecurity, because of the distance of this focus from the headquarters in Kinshasa, we find it very challenging and difficult to get close commitment or communication from the Ministry of Health DRC. So what David mentioned is the letters that were recommended during our Uganda Elimination Expert Committee meeting to liaise or to request WHO, AFRO, or ESPEN to link up with the WHO country offices of South Sudan and of DRC to work closely with the ministries of health, the 3 ministries of health, to work very closely and ensure that we come up with strategies or interventions that are going to help us in these cross-border areas or transmission zones, as Samuel has put it. So not until we get that support of WHO to engage with ministries of health, that we are able to answer very well that question of Uganda, where do you see yourselves with regard to the WHO elimination roadmap of 2030? I also sent a question on the chat to South Sudan and to DRC. We usually involve the 2 officers from the 2 countries in our Onco Elimination Committee meetings. And we agreed that when they are holding their meetings, that we also participate. But until yesterday, we have not heard about the dates or any mention of when these activities would be done. So these are 2 comments or 2 questions in my submission. WHO responding to our request to reach out to the country offices. Then another one is to the 2 countries, South Sudan and DRC, as to whether they would like us to participate in their elimination committee meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edwida, for a well narration and good questions. I hope our Secretariat, Nadia, is taking a good note of this, and you'll see how we push them through to the African, to WHO, to see how they can take into action on this, the need of, put into action these needs of Uganda. Now, there is another hand. I would like to welcome Tony. Please, Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me another opportunity to speak up. I really want to emphasize again for the 3rd time the need of WHO application towards cross-border collaboration. And as I presented it, when Uganda started its elimination policy in 2007, EPOC believed in it and then contributed for almost 2 years. At that time, myself, I was the WHO, and actually I was the focal point in coordinating the cross-border collaboration between Uganda and DRC. I would really want to say it for the 3rd time. It is now the key question as we are talking about Uganda. If we need to succeed and then reach the elimination, the end point of elimination, please, we need to give a special attention to the cross-border activities between Uganda and its 2 neighbors in order to reach that one before even the year 2030. So this is the 3rd request coming from an independent person who has been involved in these onchocerciasis activities for many years. This is my passion. And really, we need to see how we can invest in order to sort out some of the issues. War is not a problem. It is a problem, but we can overcome it. If we take the example of other diseases, I think with the EPI, the vaccination program, I think even during war situation, cross-border activities are being undertaken. Even between DRC and Uganda, they have done it. Please let us see how in a very special way, we can invest, WHO can invest itself in this cross-border issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. Again, Nadia has just responded that she will be following up with Afro and ESPN, and she will give us the feedback on this burning issue with regard to cross-border collaboration and how do we take it from where APOC left it. And so do we have any question or do we have any contribution? Or if anyone wants to speak? And if not, we still have like 17 minutes to go. I would like to go to conclusion if there is no, because we don't see more questions. And I think the most important part or the most burning thing is with regard to cross-border collaboration. So in that view, I would like to welcome Dr. Martin Mayanja, the National Coordinator from Kusikasis, for the conclusion, wrap up, and next step. Welcome, Dr. Martin.
Thank you very much, Nadia. As presented, Uganda, we have made tremendous progress since the launch of the elimination policy in 2007, and the support from the partners. The pledge of the Carter Center to support the program until elimination has been very motivating. So as Uganda, we have not had any interruption of mass treatment. Even during COVID-19 lockdown, Uganda implemented MDA because it was taken as one of the essential public health interventions. So these are our strengths. The Mexican donation has done as well because we were scared of the refugee influx. They gave us additional ivermectin to treat the refugee populations which came to Uganda. So this has helped us to get rid of the reservoirs which we would fear for the continuity of transmission. The cross-border collaborations with the DRC and the South Sudan using the local systems. You know, these people across the borders share the same culture, share the same problems, share the same flies, and they meet regularly to sort their cultural traditional issues. So we used this as a strength to implement cross-border interventions. You can imagine in the South Sudan, we went as deep as 80 kilometers in the South Sudan area. In the DRC, long distances inside. So, so far so good. We just have to ensure that the surveillance in the areas where we stopped interventions are strengthened, and this will come from the government support. We are advocating to the government of Uganda to really increase domestic funding. A domestic paper has been submitted, and we hope there will be a good response. Otherwise, you know, post-elimination surveillance can become very challenging. That's where you are heading also. And we we can only do this when the country funds these activities. And also the WHO guidelines on post-elimination surveillance, as you see, they are not very clear. Does the program end after elimination of transmission? Of course, no. The program should continue to do the surveillance even after declaration of elimination. Because in Uganda, GINWAM program still exists when we eradicated the disease over 10 years ago. So, DRC and South Sudan, currently, you know, they have no partners who are supporting the cross-border interventions, but we have now the East African Cooperation. Is there a way the DRC, the Republic of South Sudan, can use this to leverage on the cross-border collaboration? We are just same region. Why can't we have a platform? Now we have the Kakundi. Why can't Kakundi advocate so that these cross-border issues we are grappling with are really addressed? So for us to continue to complete elimination and get verified, we need really WHO support. Uganda used to have WHO support through APOC, but when APOC closed, that was the end. We are asked to make budgets to the WHO, a Uganda office. I would never get response. So we don't know whether nothing happens. So would like to get some clarification from WHO on this. Otherwise, we are making great progress. We hope to achieve onchocerciasis elimination before the end of WHO roadmap 2030. Thank you very much.
That was very strong, encouraging, and satisfying. Congratulations, Uganda. So with these remarks or wrap-up message from Dr. Martin, GON is wishing Uganda all the best, and we hope that the countries, the other endemic countries, will learn from the experience from Uganda, and we would be using Uganda as a learning spot in Africa in the efforts toward elimination of onchocerciasis in order to achieve our vision, which is to see onchocerciasis gone. So I would like to bring to an end this webinar. It was really nice. This session will be uploaded to the GON YouTube channel. So if someone wants to revisit the discussion or see it, they can see it on the YouTube channel. And also the presentation, as I mentioned earlier, will be shared soon after the end of this webinar. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good morning or a good evening, depending on where you are.
Yeah, bye. Thank you very much.